Great. So I am here with Carl, and Carl had come to me a while ago for some erectile changes, and I'm just going to let Carl talk to us about what he was experiencing, sort of his journey, where he is now, and what it has brought to his life and to his own self-esteem and all of those good things.
Okay.
And thank you very much for being willing
It's
to
my pleasure.
talk with
My
us.
pleasure. You've been so good to us. Absolutely. You don't have to do anything. Well, let's start. So my name is Carl. I'm 51 years old. I was diagnosed with cardiovascular disease when I was 45. I had, before that, noticed there was some erectile problems. Not terribly bad. I wasn't non-functional, but not 100%. I guess as they say, that's the canary in the coal mine.
Right.
Subsequently, once I got diagnosed, I had a stent put in immediately, and then 6 months later, the blockages had grown, and I ended up having open heart surgery. I had cabbage surgery, 2 bypasses.
Wow.
Recovered
It's important that, I don't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but
no,
it's
please.
important what Carl's saying, because if you look at him, he certainly doesn't look like a guy who, needed to have open heart surgery.
I get that all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure you do, and that's what's really important about this. What Carl mentioned, the erectile function is the canary in the coal mine. What that means is, if there are erectile changes, then there is a change somewhere in the cardiovascular system, typically, unless it's a psychogenic thing, which there certainly can be that type of component. But most of the men who come in here and seek care are guys that don't realize that they have some sort of blood flow issue, or they're diabetic and the sensitivity is decreasing and blood flow is decreasing. And so Carl's a perfect poster for this, because this is the face of cardiovascular disease. It eludes you, and when you have erectile changes, then you have to pay attention. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. So I recovered from the surgery, and one thing I noticed once life kind of got back to normal, which takes a long time.
Sure,
It's a
I
long
bet.
recovery, but there was definitely decreased sensitivity. The function was okay. I would say average. It was not like when I was a teenager, but
Yep.
it was, my function was okay. I wasn't, dysfunctional. I will say also, though, at the time, when I did get treatment for my cardiovascular disease, I did change my lifestyle drastically.
Yes.
So I
Good
did
for you.
stop all meat for a while, actually for years. Now I eat a little bit and stuff, but I seriously, it was a wake-up call for me. I know making big life changes is very hard. It's not hard when you're afraid you're going to die.
Absolutely.
So it was pretty easy.
Yeah.
I went vegan, very low fat. I dropped my cholesterol numbers. I dropped my triglyceride numbers. I
For
mean,
you.
no alcohol, no nothing. Really took good care of myself.
Yeah.
Started working out and going to the gym. And so all those things I know helped bring the function back, but it wasn't 100%. There were times when, it just decreased sensitivity was really my biggest problem.
Yeah. Hard to stay erect when you're just not really
no
very
pleasure.
sensitive. There's no
That's
pleasure.
the thing.
Right?
When the
It's-
pleasure, you're not getting stimulated.
Yeah.
At first, there's a mental or emotional stimulation, and we're together, and of course we adore each other, and so there's that. But then after a while, when the sensation wears off, yes, it's hard to for that to
Stay
continue.
engaged,
So,
yeah.
exactly. Stay engaged. So it's that was probably the biggest issue that I had.
Okay.
And after doing this Gaines wave, I noticed immediately after the first time sensitivity increased. I mean, noticeably.
So the first thing we did was play the rich plasma.
Oh, well, okay, right. That was
About a
last
year
That was a year
ago,
ago.
almost
That was
a year
about
ago.
Right, about a year, almost.
Yeah, almost a year. I know with Melissa it was a year since hers, and
Right.
then you were a little bit after that.
Just a little after, right.
So after the platelet-rich plasma, what did you experience?
That, I know it seemed like the effects had worn off. So going back, it was hard for me to recall. There was improvement, because when I talked to her about it, actually, on one of our drives,
Yeah.
she said, "What do you mean that you don't think it really did much for you?" She goes, "But for months," she says, "No, it did a lot for you for a while." And it did for a while. And she kind of jogged my memory. It actually did help me for a while with the sensitivity, and I think that was about the biggest gain that I had from that.
Okay. So then we went ahead and did the shockwave therapy.
Right, and that's what
It's
started.
so shockwave therapy is really what we're talking about here, and in conjunction with platelet-rich plasma, I'll tell you a little bit about why I think that's important. But so, okay, now, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll fast forward to, what, 6 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago when we started this. First treatment, immediate, noticeable change as soon as the numbing cream wore off that evening.
Wow.
I could feel, again, taking a shower, sensitivity. That was the first thing I really noticed, was taking
Really?
a shower when the water hitting it. I'm washing, I'm like, wow, that's different. I mean, like that.
Wow.
Okay, so is it just the numbing cream wearing off and
Yeah.
I'm being hypersensitive? I'm not really sure. I said, okay, I washed up. But noticeable, again, taking a shower the next morning again, holy cow, it's really more sensitive.
Uh-huh.
And I woke up, and before that I woke up with an erection harder than usual.
Uh-huh.
And that was another sign. I was like, okay, so something's going on.
Yeah.
And that's continued really since. She's noticed a difference. I mean, she's told me that it's bigger.
Yeah.
And it's harder.
Yeah.
And so, not necessarily, whether it actually caused growth this quickly or not, it'd be very debatable. Probably not. It would take a little longer for that. But the reason it feels bigger and thicker is because the increased blood flow is stretching it more to its
That's
maximum
exactly
size.
right.
That's why it's also harder. She says
That's
it's
right.
harder than she's ever seen it before.
Yeah.
And we've been together
You've been together a long time.
25 years.
Yeah. So here you are.
So she's like, oh my God, yes, this is actually good.
Mhm.
And like I said, the sensitivity's increased. And that was from the first one.
Mm.
And as we've continued, it's gotten better. The last one, and which changing the technique, and I told Gina, absolutely a home run.
Wow.
Actually, I neglected to mention this to her. When we all came
Uh-huh. Last week.
I went first because I was already non-right, and so when the girls were doing their thing, just getting up, walking around, even with the cream on, I started getting an erection just from it rubbing on my pants.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So like when you were younger, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
young men, they don't
exactly.
even have to think about sex, and all of a sudden.
Oh, and
they
I've
have
had
an erection.
spontaneous erections at work, which is
Uh-huh.
kind of inconvenient, obviously, but
Right.
it's like, wow, that's again,
That's
it takes
great.
you back, takes me back to when I was a teenager. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this is having a really positive effect in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, that's great.
And an immediate. And so last week, starting it with that technique was definitely better.
What Carl's referring to is, this is a relatively new technology, certainly to us in this country. In Europe, they've been using it for 15 years. And if you read the studies, there's a cookie cutter type of protocol. Well, cookie cutter is not always the best. So we take what it is that they were doing in the studies and we try to make it better because we're trying to get our best result. We care about our patients, and good results are good for business. So it's a total win-win. And Carl was saying that he had a significant improvement after the first treatment, and that's happened to many men, but not to all men. And I think it's important for me to set the right expectation. Carl's primary issue was sensitivity. There was absolutely some decrease in blood flow. He knows now because he now has more optimal function. That's right. So the reason it works so quickly for Carl is we're opening up some of those blood vessels, and we're initiating an angiogenesis, which is a regeneration of new blood vessels. That takes about 90 days. Opening the blood vessels and stimulating some of that blood flow can be immediate for a guy who has pretty decent blood flow to begin with. So I would say that 90% of the men that we've treated so far are having a similar experience to Carl, and they're very, very excited. There's just a handful of guys who have more progressed disease. They were having to use injectables, that oral medications weren't working. They really were very progressed, have diabetes, have other issues that are making it a little bit more difficult. And so all that means is we likely need more than a 6 series. We would need also some platelet-rich plasma, because the shock wave is stimulating the regeneration. It's starting the process, but the platelet-rich plasma is fertilizing it. It adds additional growth factors to fertilize, so you're just going to get there faster. And then Carl doesn't know yet how long this is going to last. He'd mentioned that the PRP lasted for several months, but it certainly didn't take him a whole year. The studies are showing us that we are truly reversing disease here. We are truly growing new blood vessels. The PRP gets the vessels to work better, and there is an angiogenesis that can occur. This, in this particular treatment, it truly is creating new blood vessels. So,
And it's permanent. I mean,
right.
I mean, relatively speaking, I
Right.
mean, you can have plaques rebuild,
sure.
you know, as you age another 20 years, but it does take you back,
Yeah.
you know.
So when you say permanent, it says permanent as you are youthful. So we
Yes,
are truly
absolutely.
turning back the clock, but the clock still keeps
Of
ticking.
course it does.
So the studies were showing, we're following men 3+ years after, and they still maintain results. So, I mean, it's exciting. I think everybody else asks me, well, how long does it last? And I think it depends on how we're reversing disease and we're facilitating that regeneration, but how well are you willing to take care of you from now forward? You know?
That, and exactly.
Big deal.
Yes, it's because slow your own aging process down by
That's right.
taking better care of yourself.
That's right. That's right.
And that can, yes.
And so it's a big deal. You know, we
Mhm.
figure out what's happening. Here at Dr. Studio, I do that quite frequently. Carl is under the care of one of my colleagues who I really respect. And so he is doing all the right things from a functional perspective and a hormone balancing. But normally, if he wasn't, I would do his blood work, not only look at hormones, but also inflammation, endothelial dysfunction markers. I really look at a very comprehensive approach because we want to think about why is this happening. I order coronary calcium scores for most of the men that come in, so we can look at how much calcium is built up in the coronary arteries. If there isn't any calcium in the coronary arteries, then you don't have any calcium down below either. So then we have to look at endothelial dysfunction, so the lining of the vessels, are they dilating and contracting? Because this is all
Controls
about
everything.
blood flow, that's
Exactly.
right.
That's how it's controlled.
Blood flow and nervous tissue. So there's a lot to it, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist. It's just a matter of doing the right tests, figuring out what's happening, having a good quality discussion, and then figuring out what tools are necessary. The shock wave is involved. The platelet-rich plasma is a really nice tool to add to the whole process. Not everybody needs that both, but everybody could benefit from both. And then just a matter of getting your brain in the right place. A lot of guys that will have erectile changes, they will become so anxious about not being able to perform that it's really tricky. It's really tricky to get that confidence back. So if you're having spontaneous erections at work, because this treatment's working so well, it's a lot easier to regain that confidence.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm too stubborn. That has never been a problem for
Right.
me, the lack of confidence.
Well, you're in a
I'm too
great loving
stubborn.
relationship
Well, I am,
too,
yes,
you know.
exactly.
A lot
The
of
two of
guys
us
are
yes.
Mhm.
That's very
not quite so lucky, and
No.
maybe they're not in a relationship, and
That's
they
good
didn't
point.
perform very well the last few times, so now they're a little nervous.
Okay. That makes
That brain plays into it big time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely it does.
Well, I really appreciate your willingness to
Sure.
talk about
My
this,
pleasure.
and good luck,
You know, and anything I can do to help,
yay. Thank you.
always.
Yes. Okay.